Welcome in. The bass has dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's May 12th. It's a Tuesday. We don't have a hashtag. We're beyond hashtags at this point. Everything seems to get crazy. I mean, off the top of my head, we have... I'm trying to think of a good Scottish hashtag because we have a vote in the SPFL this morning. So go ahead. Get creative. Whatever hashtag you want to put on that, go ahead and throw it on Twitter at us at Soccer Down Here. We've got MLS talk about scheduling. We've got MLS talk about pay cuts. We've got MLS talk about just what it looks like for them to get back on the field, the next steps. We've also got USL talk to go along with that. So you got a hashtag idea? Go ahead, workshop it, throw it at us at Soccer Down Here, and let us know what you're thinking. We got updates in England. We got updates. Let's see, what all do I have? The countries I have on the board this morning: France, Spain, England, Italy, Scotland, Australia, Austria, and China. Hey, I mean, that's what's going on, and I'm sure we'll have more to add to the list before we're done. So, John, where do you want to start today?
Well, I figure we should start domestic and then work our way over to Scotland over there. And the 10 o'clock hour is when we are anticipating the vote tally from all of the sides at the EGM, the extraordinary meeting.
Well, let me get ready for that with a Coca-Cola Energy Cherry.
Yes.
There you go.
And before we go any further, a couple of housekeeping notes. How is the Soccer Down Here cover going? How is that with our friends the mask with our friends at Die Hard?
We have sold a lot. We have ordered said masks from Die Hard. They are in process. Have not got the update on if they have been prepared and they are getting ready to be shipped or not. They've been fast, but it's kind of a crazy time with shipping and warehouses and production and all of that. So they are on order. We do still have some for sale. We did go ahead and order some extras for those who missed out on the pre-sale. They're $20 each. Every one that you order will see a donated one go to Soccer in the Streets. For kids, for families that might not have the means to track down a mask, might not have a mask. And look, we've had this conversation. Man, it seems to be a big part of the conversation nationally. Wearing a mask is not an inconvenience. It protects others from you. It's just looking out for other people. And, did it feel weird the first time I put a mask on when I went into a store? Yeah, it did. And I got over it after one trip. And I'm thinking about the people that I'm in the store with. I'm thinking about the people that are working to sell me stuff that I need to buy. I'm thinking about, just the people around me because, twofold. I mean, one, I have not been tested because tests have not been widely available. I have not had symptoms. I've not had any reason to be tested. So I don't know if I have it or have had it because there's no way for me to know. I'm not psychic. So I'm going to protect the people around me. That's my line of thinking. Also, I don't want people to freak out if I sneeze or if I cough, which I have been prone to do since my sinuses are garbage. And the weather has been trying to drive them crazy for the last few months.
Yep.
So I want people to feel secure around me when I'm out in public, so I'm going to wear a mask. It's, at a minimum, you're wearing a piece of cloth over your mouth and nose that doesn't hurt you. It's only going to be a benefit. There is no harm from it, so that's why we wanted to do it. I've been happy to see all the different protocols that teams have been following about players showing up in masks and modeling that behavior, because I do think it's an important one. So we have the Soccer Down Here masks available. We're going to donate masks to the kids and families at Soccer in the Streets who need them. We do still have some for sale. It's $20. That includes your shipping, and that also donates one to Soccer in the Streets. So we will give you an update on when those are going to be shipped out once we get that next production line update. But thanks to Die Hard for working with us and and making it feasible to get things where we could come up with a reasonable price point that also included a donation. So thank you to our friend Gonzalo over at Die Hard, who's always taking good care of us.
Yep, and yesterday you mentioned the idea of wearing masks. I, like you, have been pretty much spending most of my time indoors. For those watching on Twitch and looking and seeing what's going on, there's a lot less up top than there was yesterday. So went to a family friend who has a salon and is one of the top wig makers and wig keepers in the arts community here in the city of Atlanta. And went to his house and had a mask basically from the bridge of my nose down past my Adam's apple, and was wearing that and getting a haircut at the same time. It was our way of helping out someone and giving back and that kind of stuff. Wearing a mask was what we did. And the boss and I did that yesterday when we got our haircuts. So it's strictly something where you're keeping an eye out for everyone else around you. So that's why we're doing it. And it was a great thing that Jason thought up with our friends at Die Hard. The second piece of bookkeeping this morning, for those of you who might miss the show, whether it's live on audio on the SDH app, on Spreaker, on your favorite podcatcher, might miss it live on Twitch at twitch.tv/soccerdownhere. We have added another place where you can watch the show. Go to Zingo TV, channel 250, and our friends at Barn Burner. And we are their late night programming. So if you miss us live, you can catch us tape delayed. Starts about 11 o'clock Eastern time, and it goes until the show's over. So if you're a night owl, 11 p.m. to like 1:30 in the morning, that's where we are. Zingo TV, channel 250, the Barn Burner Network. It's good to be there as well, and you get to kind of see the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on where I get to break out my Washington Sentinels gear as I am this morning,
and
as we mentioned yesterday.
Washington Sentinels again?
The best damn football team the movie's ever had.
Okay, so they're not a real team.
Oh, God, no. No, this is the Replacements football team that we talked about yesterday. So this is official movie prop from the movie The Replacements.
Official movie prop. Hold on.
Yeah.
Wait,
the players, when they would wear their issue material in some of the scenes, they would have these kinds of jackets.
No. Hold on. You're saying two different things.
What?
Was this used on the movie?
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody who was one of the players in the movie wore that same hoodie?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clear up. All right.
Yep. This is a player issue. Washington
Not Keanu
Sentinels.
Reeves, though.
No, this was a double X. So I don't. It might have been Daniel Bateman. Might have been John Favreau. I don't know.
One of the fake linemen wore that.
Could have been.
Right.
Yeah. Could have been one of the fake linemen. Could have been the tight end, Daniel Murphy. But yeah, this is team issue Washington Sentinels gear that we're wearing this morning, and I'm also underneath wearing the Cincinnati Kids Major Indoor Soccer League shirt.
There you go. You're mixing a real indoor soccer team with a fake football team, and that's not how things work. But okay, whatever.
Real indoor football team with a fake outdoor football team. So that's where we are.
No, it's indoor soccer. It's not indoor football. Don't even be silly with that. It's indoor soccer. Nobody's claiming that one. It's indoor soccer. They're not going to call it football.
So indoor soccer and the Replacements. So that's where we are this morning with the gear. But yes, with our friends at Zingo TV, channel 250, you can catch us at 11 o'clock every night, 11 o'clock Eastern, until the show's over.
Word. Where do you want to start today?
Domestic. Let's go domestic, since there's a lot to talk about internationally. Stephen Goff, late last night, from our friends at the Washington Post. MLS is proposing all 26 teams come to Orlando to resume the season this summer. Quoting the Goff article, players, coaches, and support staff numbering more than 1,000 would live under quarantine at one of the large resorts near Disney World for an undetermined length of time, said those people who requested anonymity because they were not authorized to speak on the matter. Teams would practice and play primarily at ESPN Wide World of Sports. 220 acres is a part of Disney's massive footprint in Central Florida. And Disney's owned ESPN is one of MLS's broadcast partners. Spokesman for MLS and the MLSPA said they didn't want to comment. Walt Disney Company did not reply to a message seeking comment. League is expected to accelerate plans over the next 2 weeks and set the framework for resuming a season that, because of the coronavirus pandemic, was shuttered after 2 weekends.
Orlando.
Yep.
Orlando.
Yep, or Joseph. I'm just not even going to try to recreate it 'cause it's too good. Yeah, look, I mean, it makes sense if you're going to go to one place to do this, Orlando, with both the stadium, to do things there, but also the Wide World of Sports complex. I mean, that's why it was built for this kind of stuff. ESPN being involved makes a ton of sense, so I get it. It's a little different than it felt like where things might be headed, as Germany is going to play games in their own stadiums. England, you've got a lot of pushback against neutral venues. They might end up in their own stadiums, and now MLS might stick with one of the original ideas of going to one site. And everybody jumps on that one part about they're going to be in quarantine for whatever. They're going to basically be in a training camp. I mean, if you want to call going to a World Cup being in quarantine, go ahead. It's the same thing. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, if you go to a World Cup, go look at what the U.S. did in 1990 in Italy. Like, they barricaded themselves in. Like, they didn't go out. They didn't let people in. Like, they had a closed training camp. It's the same thing. So, yeah, does it give a little more protection? Absolutely. I think the other things about this article were that's not going to be the whole season. That would be a way to restart. There's talk about that being either a standalone tournament, which is not very likely, a tournament that the games do count in the regular season, which is interesting. There'd have to be consolation games, so everybody plays the same number of games coming out of there, which you can do. I mean, you can create a format to do that. So you could have a portion of the regular season that doubles as a tournament, that has some kind of a winner, that has some kind of a prize at the end of it. There's been some speculation that could replace the U.S. Open Cup berth in CONCACAF Champions League. USL teams would be angry about it, but also USL teams haven't won the Open Cup except for one time in 1999, the Rochester Rhinos. So it's not like that's a common occurrence. It's not a common occurrence anywhere in the world where a second division team wins the National Cup. U.S. Soccer would have to sign off on that part of it. So push that to the side. That's a minimal element here. Would this be a way to get a number of games played safely as we all try to figure this out, mitigate the concerns with some teams not being able to play games in their market? Would it be a way to also get teams who can't train right now in their market into a spot? Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. From a jump-off point, it makes a lot of sense. So the fact that nobody wanted to comment is generally a good sign that maybe there's a little something to it. Now, I think my questions are, like, how long, how many games are you going to try to get played there? Are you expecting that by the time you start to play games, let's say mid-June, if you really push, let's say mid-June, you're probably not going to be able to play games in a lot of markets. So if you play for a month in the Orlando area by mid-July, by the end of July, would you feel like you would at least have a better understanding of what things look like in different markets? You could take a break after this, because you could create a format. I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. You could create some kind of a format where you play 6 to 8 games in a month. That's pushing it in terms of games in a period of time, but we saw Atlanta United at times play 10 games in a month. So, I mean, it can be done. 8 would be probably the max you'd want to see. Probably prefer somewhere around 6 or so. But you get a bunch of games in a short period of time, and then by the end of that, you can take a 2-week quarantine period if you need to go back to your local market. You can still train during that. It's not an isolation period where you can't exert physical activity. It is a period where you're going to be kept away from others, all those sorts of things. You are going to have testing during all of this, and that's another key to it. That consistent testing is going to be an important part of this. Would it buy you some time, get you games played, get teams a place to train that need it? Yeah, it would be the quickest jump-off point for MLS. It makes sense. It does make some sense in terms of that. The question would be what's next. And I don't know if we know. I don't know if we could know right now. But that would be my ask is, okay, this is the plan to get started. 6 to 8 games. Okay, cool. Then you've got 8 to 10 games played in your season. You want to play another 24 in a perfect world, but let's say you want to play at least another 16. How do you do that? And what does the format look like? And are you worried about conferences and the schedule format or any of that? Probably not. It's probably going to be minimal at that point, and that's fine. But you'd like to get, my guess would be, 28 games minimum for the season. Yeah. I think if you get 28, it's kind of hard to be too worked up about it. I mean, maybe you have one more team go into the playoffs because of that, because you have a little bit less of a regular season to get there. I'm okay with that too. Like, you can make formats work. Just what does it look like after? That's the thing that we can't know right now, but that's what I'd be curious about.
In the Goff article, under the Orlando plan, MLS brings teams in for workouts on multiple match days, which ESPN platforms would carry. Unclear whether the league's other TV partners, Fox Sports and Univision, would show games. Without spectators, MLS is eyeing opportunities to bond with fans through behind-the-scenes packages, which is what we've talked about, and interactive engagement on ESPN and the league's digital platforms.
Yeah, the Fox part of it would be a question. I mean, is ESPN going to basically buy Fox out, or are they going to shift a bunch of their games to this, and then Fox will pick up?
Is it like NASCAR?
Schedule? Yeah, that might be the way to go right now. That could work too. So you got to get creative. I mean, that's where we're at with this. You've got to get creative and think outside the box. I think this is a good plan that solves some problems. The question is just what then? And there's no way to know that right now. That's okay. We're just all curious.
Brandon Felder says he has mixed feelings. He says, on the plus side, Atlanta never loses in Orlando, so MLS Cup, here we come.
That's true. I mean, I think everybody has mixed feelings right now, but there's no way to avoid it. I mean, you're not going to have – if you play games in June or July, you're not going to have people in the stands. I do not see any spectators at any sporting venues in June or July in the United States. So does it really matter if you're playing it in a closed Mercedes-Benz Stadium or a closed Yankee Stadium or a closed Red Bull Arena, or if you're playing it in Orlando at the Wide World of Sports, where you can set it up for TV and have it static for TV for a while? You can really create some interesting elements from a TV perspective because, I mean, you're basically creating an open studio to do things in. If you're not going to have fans in the stands, I don't really care if the game is in market or not in market. I know some have, in England especially, have gotten really worked up about that. If there's no fans, I don't think it really matters. I just don't. Outside of the different variables that maybe MLS, it's a little more exaggerated. NYC playing at Yankee Stadium. It's a tough place to go in and play because of the field itself. I think it hurts NYC as much as it hurts anybody else because they want to play and they can't play on that little tiny field. So I don't think they really care. The differences between turf and grass and teams that have an advantage playing on turf, yeah, that does factor in. Atlanta United's one of those teams. But it's a minimal factor for me. First off, you got to be safe. Second off, you got to get games played. The other element that we can't really predict right now, and I think it's going to slow things down, and MLS is going to have to make a decision sooner rather than later, is the fact that not all of their teams can do anything right now. The teams that are back on the field are able to have people out on a field. Nobody's able to do group sessions yet. That's an MLS training moratorium. That's going to be lifted at the end of the week, or it could be anyway. But you have some teams in some markets that cannot train. They cannot be doing anything in terms of team activities. Nothing. So when you get to those group sessions, that's where competitive balance starts to come into play. That's where the difference between a team that's had 2 weeks of training and a team that hasn't comes into play. MLS is going to have to solve that. Doing something like this would solve that problem, because then everybody, and you don't have to go there initially if you're Atlanta United, because you can train here. But New York City, for example, I think the Red Bulls would fall into this. There are other teams Philadelphia, that cannot train in their market. If this opportunity is opened up to them, hey, you can go down now. We've got room board for you. Everything is set up. You're going to have places to train, and you can get back to activity. It solves that problem.
Chris Hutchison wants to know if Mickey or Goofy would be in charge of VAR.
Probably be Goofy. I'm going to assume that Goofy would be in charge of that. I think Goofy might have better eyesight. Now, Goofy might want to get a little extra involved and maybe rule on some things that Goofy should not be ruling on, but maybe that's nothing new.
Turner Kirby this morning links to a CNN headline where it says that Walt Disney World theme parks and Disney Resort hotels are now accepting reservations for travel dates starting July 1st onward amid closures due to the coronavirus pandemic. And Turner wants to know, could this cause problems with the bubble plan?
I don't know. I don't know the wide world of sports set up that well. I mean, we know that you've had teams train there, and quite a few teams. I don't know if you've had 26 different teams at one time be there. Well, 25. Orlando City could use their own facility. There are other places in that vicinity that I think you could do essentially the same thing like this if you don't have enough rooms available. But if you're Disney, I mean, I'm just thinking from a business perspective, if you're going to open things back up for bookings and for people to come to the park and all that stuff, are you going to not sell guaranteed rooms for a extended period of time, probably resulting in a lot of money?
Yes.
Are you going to say no to that to take a chance on people traveling and showing up? No, I think you're going to take the money. I think you'll have limited rooms early on when you open up because you're probably going to have limited interest from just general people going to the park and going to stuff. This would help mitigate some of their losses too. So
yeah,
I don't think it would affect it.
MLS comes in, sits there and waves a rather large guaranteed check in front of you to say, we will fill up these hotel rooms and we will fill up Wide World of Sports. We will use the facilities.
6 weeks of whatever rental cost you have for all those teams and all those rooms. That's what Disney would have to be looking for right now.
Yeah. So, I think that MLS, when they come with their guaranteed money versus the prospect of having folks in every other room or something like that, if you want to create social distancing for a hotel complex or something like that, Wide World of Sports, Disney will definitely take the rather large check that will be cut by MLS.
Yes. And if it's July 1 that they're talking about doing this, you would potentially, if you're MLS, I would think you might be in there with some teams maybe as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But others, maybe second week of June. So you might get in ahead of it and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Other news from Jeff Carlisle and Noah Davis from ESPN. MLS has made a formal proposal to the Players Association regarding salary reductions due to the pandemic, with the league now seeking a 20% pay cut across the board. Sources tell ESPN. The league is also asking the Players Association to accept additional financial reductions apart from salary cuts that could run into the tens of millions of dollars, according to one source. That source did not elaborate on how the league would achieve those savings. Yeah,
I don't know. The last part doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't understand that. MLS players have been paid as normal up to this point, and I believe you're getting pretty close to about half of their salary that's been paid out. The original thing that was floated to the Players Association was a 50% cut, but not affecting players making $100,000 or less. This is 20% affecting everybody across the board, and some other consideration, which I'm not sure what that means. That would be taken out of future checks. So the 50% one, obviously, if they've been paid close to 50% of their pay, that would be almost impossible to do, because then you're basically not making any money the rest of the year, and that doesn't make much sense. This one's a little more palatable, but it will hit paychecks that are coming, from here on if it happens. It's got to be agreed upon by the Players Association. The CBA has not been ratified yet, so that adds to the confusion a little bit. But as we've said across the board, you've got financial issues resulting from this, whether you are MLS, any soccer team in the world, any sports organization in the world. It's the reality. We can't stick our head in the sand about it. So the fact that this is coming up, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. And hopefully they can create a plan, and I think they can create it much easier because of MLS's structure. Hopefully they can create a plan that, while there is a initial cut, there is some working agreement down the road once things are grown back, that players are going to be, I think, just rewarded for working with the league on this. And that should be a part of this conversation. And I don't know how you can quantify that right now because you don't know timelines, but I'd like to see that at least understood publicly, that if the players are going to help the league here, because that's what it would be. The players have a contract. They would be helping their clubs and helping the league, especially in MLS's case, by accepting a pay cut or deferral or whatever it ends up being. They need to be acknowledged for that, and they need to be rewarded for that down the road, because the expectation would be that you get back to where you were. No business is going to come in and say, yep, we're just going to be half capacity forever. No, you don't know how long it's going to take. None of us know this. But when that happens, the players need to be rewarded and acknowledged financially for their contribution now. And that should be something the players argue for, because they're giving up a lot that they don't necessarily have to, because if I'm not mistaken, in the CBA and any of the agreements, there's no clause for MLS to cite to just cut pay or just in contracts because of a global pandemic in this case.
Along those same lines, the USLPA came out with a statement about dinner time yesterday. Just something to keep an eye on. USLPA said this past Thursday the league, on behalf of its USL Championship owners, approached the USLPA regarding a potential return to play, along with a proposal that requested economic relief from our players in the coming days. Leadership will be meeting with each team to discuss proposals and the path forward. So something to just keep under your hat for the USL as well.
Yeah, and there was talk of pay cuts there. Now, USL is going to get hit even harder by this on two fronts. You don't have the TV money to back up anything that MLS has, and you don't have the same level of ownership in terms of financial heft that MLS has. So you've got more people who are less able to take the hit that they're taking right now. But you're also dealing with smaller margins because the pay's not the same. So it's one thing if you're taking 20% from somebody making $1 million a year. It's a difference if it's 20% from somebody making $100,000 a year. So USL is in a tough spot. I've been really worried about what this year looks like for USL Championship, USL League One, but it sounds good. Everything coming out of the office. The fact that they're even dealing with the USLPA is a good thing, because they don't have a CBA. They haven't had one. The USLPA is fairly new. The fact that they're trying to work together is a very important part of all this. And when we get into England later, you can see what happens when leagues and entities do not work with the players. When they don't work with them, you can create more problems. MLS, USL, at the outset, trying to work with the players to figure out the best way back to the field, but also the best way to handle all of the financial complications of this.
What else domestically did you want to get into this morning before we head overseas?
I mean, that was what I had. Those were the big things that I had. The format for MLS with a group of games played in Orlando will be interesting to see how they sort it out. The pay cut, not a surprise. We'll see what kind of agreement they come to. And USL, you're going to have to work hand in hand with the players. I understand the financial implications of this. I know how bad it will be, but you don't have a competition if you don't have players. And you've got to work with the players you have under contract. So we will see how they handle that and see how they go forward.
All right, England, a couple of notes. Once again, keeping an eye on what's going on in Scotland. Allegedly, 25 minutes from now, as Jason and I are talking, the vote is set to be released on the EGM, the extraordinary meeting, and figuring out whether or not we're going to have more fun with Rangers and Celtic in the league. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. But notes out of the Premier League. Sammy Mokbel has been very busy this morning from the Daily Mail. Premier League clubs will be told today that members of their squads do not intend to return on Monday. Sportsmail understands that players have already privately expressed to their managers that they have major reservations about returning to work next week. A number of top-flight clubs will hold video conference calls over the next 48 hours aimed at informing players about health and safety protocols. Meetings also give players an opportunity to air their concerns about playing ahead of a return to small group training on Monday.
Why have you not involved the players in creating the health and safety protocols or brought them into the process sooner? That's why you have this issue. And that's why you have players not wanting to come back. If they were part of it, I think they'd feel differently. The issue that's going to come up, I mean, you're going to get to a point where you're going to have to make a decision on, is it safe to come back from the player's perspective? What have you done to make it safe? And if players don't feel it's safe, or they don't feel personally safe because of their own situations, then what do clubs do? And I don't know the answers to that. The Premier League has been busy battling each other, busy battling their broadcast partners, trying to figure out what money looks like, busy battling a lot of things, but they haven't done anything with their players yet. And that's a problem. And it's coming to bear fruit right now when you need to have that buy-in. You can't demand buy-in. And you have to have buy-in right now because we're all trying to figure this out. You don't, in these kind of situations, you don't respond well to somebody coming to you and saying, this is what you're going to do. Because you don't know the realities of everything right now. You don't know if these protocols are going to keep you safe. You don't know what the next steps are. And the fact that you've not been included in the conversation, not even driving the conversation, but at least included in the conversation, this is why you're getting this reaction. The other thing that's a little strange, and you have to wonder why this is the case in England and not other places, Sammy Mokbel's article said Premier League stars, and I don't know if he's talking about just that's his synonym for players, if it's all players or if it's just the stars, the higher earners. But I have not heard of anybody saying these kinds of things in Spain, not to this degree. And let me rephrase, because Gerard Piqué said he felt like maybe they were coming back a little fast. Okay. Nobody has said, they're not coming to training. I haven't seen anybody make that kind of stance. And no player in England has said that on the record yet. But Sammy Mokbel at the Daily Mail is reporting that's what's going to happen today. Then what? Why is it like that in England, and why did the German players get back on the field when the time came? Why are MLS players back on the field when they are able to? Why is it happening in other places but not in England? I don't know the answer to that. I'd be really curious. Is it the way that everything is being reported in England? Is it the way that the clubs and the league are dealing with the players? I don't know. But it's very different there in terms of getting back on the field than it's been anywhere else.
Mokbel mentions players along the lines of Sergio Aguero, Manuel Lanzini, Danny Rose have publicly expressed significant concerns about returning, but clubs are not putting pressure on their players to make themselves available currently because of the climate, and players have also voiced their fears on the players' WhatsApp group. And there's a sense among players that they're being used, and this is Mokbel's words, as political pawns by the government as they look to give the country a much-needed boost. And there's also frustration at a perceived lack of consultation from the government and the Premier League with the playing community as a part of Project Restart. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Danny Rose responding to Boris Johnson's statement to the House of Commons about bringing the game back. This is Danny Rose's words. The government's saying bring back football to boost the morale of the nation. I don't give a F about the nation's morale. People's lives are at risk. Football shouldn't be spoken about till numbers have dropped massively. It's bollocks. There are some really widely separate feelings about where we are worldwide. I mean, You're seeing it in England, you're seeing it in the United States, you're seeing it in a lot of countries. Are footballers' lives at risk going back to training? The risk is massively low. I think that needs to be understood. And I'm not trying to throw shade at Danny Rose at all, because I think his statement goes further than specifically what's here. But the risk of going back to training with the protocols that are being put in place, it is extremely minimal. That risk grows when you get to playing games because you're involving more people. I mean, let's break this down to the granular right now. Coronavirus spreads when people interact, period. It doesn't spread through the air magically. It doesn't spread through different things where it's just going to pop up and infiltrate your house. It spreads when people interact with one another because you don't know who has it and who doesn't. If you are in a training environment at your team and protocols are set up to test, it's the number one element here to know if somebody has it or not. Test, track, and also have the contact tracing as part of that. In a team environment, they're going to be able to give you resources that you don't have on your own. I don't have it. I mean, when I go to the store, I don't know who's there. I don't know who's in the grocery store. I mean, even as far as like people delivering you stuff, like I don't know who they are. I don't know where they've been. There's no way to know that. In a team environment, you're going to have a lot of protection. So that has to be understood. But that also has to be spelled out to the players who are taking part in it. The political pawn thing, I agree. Like, it does feel that way because they haven't been consulted. They have not been talked about. You've got the leader of the country going out and saying, like, yeah, we need these players to go do this and we need these games. But the players play the game and they haven't been part of the conversation. That's ridiculous. That's poor organization. Where things start to amplify in terms of risk is when you have games, even behind closed doors, because you have another team that has not been in your control set. You have other personnel, referees, whatever stadium staff. You have other people around that you don't have control over their actions, what they do outside of this. It's complicated. You would expect, again, because if you are Tottenham and you're playing Newcastle doing their protocols, taking care of their staff, doing their testing, their players should know when they are picked for the match, they are safe. They do not have coronavirus. If they play another team, they're not going to infect the other team. you also have to have that understanding, and this is where trust comes in, that the other team is doing everything correctly as well. They're doing all the testing. They're doing all the tracing, all of that. So on the field, and there's actually been a study done about this, and it was really referring to grassroots football, because you get a game between two non-league teams. It's pretty much your two teams and your referees, and that's who's on the field. You don't have a whole lot of contact in a football match. You don't have a whole lot of players standing around next to each other for a extended period of time. You don't have as much of that. Do you have it? Yeah. But when you start talking about high-risk and low-risk exposures, you're talking about a lot of low-risk exposures in a match. And that's what the study said, was like for non-league football, it might actually be easier to come back to play games than it would be for the Premier League. So are footballers' lives at risk more so than your average person if they come back and play? I don't think they are. I don't think, from what I know about this, that they are. Are they still? Is there still a risk? Yeah, there's definitely a risk with everything with this. But I think what Danny Rose is two things he's getting at a little bit deeper. It's not just the players, it's their families, it's the people around them, it's the people in their households that have to be part of this. That's why the German plan that we dug into yesterday is important, because you have voluntary testing for people in the household. You have behavior expectations of not interacting with a whole bunch of people. You're interacting with the people in your household and your team, and that's it. And players have to live up to that. Now, as we saw last week with the White House, you have a press secretary for the vice president who, and it's been said over and over again, tested negative on Thursday, tested positive on Friday. You don't know, where she could have contracted it. Was it because of the valet that had tested positive earlier in the week? Was it something outside of the White House completely? You don't know. That's where the contact tracing comes into play. But it can happen, even in an environment that is as protected as that. That's why you have to constantly test. That's why you have to then isolate. That's why you then have to work backwards and figure things out. But you're starting to see, I think, a little bit more with that situation, with teams that are handling this, that one positive test doesn't derail everything. There are ways to follow up test other people who had contact. There are ways to isolate. There are ways to then work backwards to see who needs to be isolated. There are ways even to modify that as we're seeing. There are ways to handle this that we are all learning as we go. I think you can create the protocols to play games behind closed doors. I've come around to that you can make it safe to play behind closed doors. You can create the protocols that nothing is foolproof, but have enough checks and balances to make it safe for the participants to play behind closed doors. You have to have the buy-in from family members, from household members. You have to have the buy-in from the participants. And you have to, I think, continue to show, whether it's the Bundesliga results, whether it's what we saw in Spain with their testing, that you can make this safe and you can handle things when they come up. Danny Rose saying this, I mean, it's explosive and it's a guttural reaction to this, but I think a lot of it is because they have not been part of this planning at all. And of course they're going to feel left out. And of course they're going to feel like everything's at risk because nothing's been spelled out to them in the right way. And, the other part of it, and this, it is a factor. Is it the driving factor? Depends on who you talk to. But the factor of the financial loss is looming over all of this. It is what's driving this. If clubs didn't have to worry about losing money, putting people out of jobs, going out of business, if clubs didn't have to worry about that at all, then they wouldn't be trying to play at all. I mean, if they're safe, if their revenues are guaranteed, all's good. It's not the case. So that does factor into it. You still have to ensure the safety because you can't play if you don't have that. But if you do that, yeah, they're going to want to play because they're looking at losing a lot of money even if they play now. If they don't play, I mean, Richard Masters, chief exec of the Premier League, has talked about a loss of at least £1 billion if they don't play, if they don't finish the season out. Not every team survives that. Not every job survives that. That's a guarantee. And this is the other element, and I think people need to understand this. Football clubs employ a lot more people than players. You know, whether it's commentators, but academy staff, technical training staff, kitmen, marketing, communications, sponsorship sales, ticket sales. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people at a club. Those are the ones that are going to really, truly get hurt by this. Let's be real. If there's nothing for them to do, there's not a job for them to do. A player's going to go find a place to play. It's not as easy for, you know, a communications person or a digital team member to just go find somewhere else to work. It's not that easy. So that does factor into it as well. This is a complicated situation. Everything has to be well thought out. Everything has to be communicated well. And I think what you're seeing is the leagues and countries that are communicating well, getting the proper buy-in, are getting back to the field quicker than the ones that are not. England is not. Scotland has not. And those are the two that have been a disaster during all of this. And it's only going to get worse for both. Whereas Germany, right now, still on track to play this weekend. Spain, training. Real Madrid opened their training yesterday. Barcelona started on Friday. They're moving towards a potential June 12th start. You know, Serie A, Zlatan is back in Italy. He's getting ready to rejoin training after a quarantine period, coming back from Sweden. He is getting ready to rejoin Milan. You're edging towards action there. England, we have no idea what's about to happen. Scotland, we have no clue what's going to happen. Communication's a big thing. Communication, especially when you're trying to explain to people that, no, we are understanding your concerns. We hear what is at risk. We know what we need to do to minimize that risk, and here's what we're going to do. That's a very important element of this, and it feels like leadership has left that out in some countries.
Turner Kirby, along the lines of this particular topic, he says, the problem that I have with the null and void crowd is they keep trying to repeat the line, quote, it's not safe right now, just scrap the season, try again in the fall. Who says it'll be safe in the fall, spring, or even in 2021?
Well, there's no guarantee. I mean, I haven't heard any of them make the argument. If you wanted to just argue and pick a debate point, you would say that, well, if you scrap this season, then you're not playing games in a different environment than the original part of the season was. And if you start the next season, then the argument that I would have to them would be, well, are you going to play every game behind closed doors? Because you're not going to start the next season with fans in the stands unless you're going to start potentially next summer. I mean, it might not be that long, but it might be that long. That's what we don't know. I'm not necessarily on board with the, you know, then we don't know if we'll play in a year. There's going to be games. I think we're too far down that road. And again, as I said, I think, you know, whether it's a government, whether it is a team, I think we're learning now how you handle this situation in terms of managing a group of people. How you manage the testing part of it, which is the key. You've got to have the tests to do it because you've got to consistently test. And then the protocols of minimizing the spread in general with the hand washing, with the temperature taking, with all these things that are checks. They're not guarantees, they're checks. They're ways to minimize. When you have a positive, then what do? These are the things that we're starting to see now, and for me, and maybe I'm the only one here, I think this fear that I still hear parroted occasionally, I saw it from a local columnist I was a little surprised by. If you have a positive test today in a team, it is not the situation it was when Rudy Gobert tested positive. It's not. That was 2 months ago. We didn't know much of anything about this at this point. There was a thought then that, well, that means every player for the Jazz is infected. That means every player that they played is infected. It wasn't the case. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you had 2 Jazz players that tested positive, Gobert and Donovan Mitchell.
Yep.
You didn't have any players from any other teams they had played test positive.
No, but what you did have is contact, I guess if you want to call it a contact positive. John Forsland, the play-by-play guy for the Carolina Hurricanes, stayed in Rudy Gobert's hotel room in Detroit. Mm-hmm. And because of that and that contact, Forsland tested positive, and he had to go into he went into a 2-week quarantine.
Okay. So in the Rudy Gobert world,
yes,
from what we know, and honestly, that should have never happened. That's on the hotel.
Yeah.
That's on the hotel in a big way.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't stay in that hotel ever again. But because the spread in that kind of way is very minimal. It's very low risk. It's extremely low risk. You wouldn't quarantine somebody who stayed in the same room as somebody who tested positive. Now, that would be considered a low risk. That would be like we've heard with Dr. Fauci right now and his exposure. It's a low risk. Like, that's even more of a low risk because you didn't even see the guy. You would expect that they would have cleaned the place up and not had that happen. So, I don't know. You had one other player, which you can assume that it came from Gobert. It could have been the other way around, honestly. You don't know. But one other player and one person who stayed in the same hotel room. The next night, or was it previous?
It was
a few days before.
It was. I think it was. I'm going on the I'm reading the Forsland story now.
It's okay. I mean, if there's
but
any
still contact, details, the interaction was there.
Well, no. The interaction was not there.
Meaning the commonality of geography was there, not contact in and of itself. And Forsland was just in a 2-week quarantine. Last 12 of the 14 days were in his basement. He was literally pulled off the team bus along with the team social media videographer.
Did he test positive?
No, he did not.
Okay, so that's another element of it.
Just displayed no symptoms, but was put in 2-week quarantine.
Okay, so he didn't test. He didn't show any symptoms. It was all out of protection because at that time, again, we did not know that much about this. Now we do, and that's part of the reason we do know more about it. You didn't have all these tests. You didn't have all these positive tests then. You had tests, but you didn't have positive tests. So I think now you know what this is really like in a team environment, what it is like in an office environment. Even the White House right now, you've got 2 people that have tested positive, at least that we know publicly, and that's it. And you have a lot of interaction. You have a lot of people in a small space. I'm not trying to minimize it. I want that to be understood, but the fear that one positive test in a league wrecks the league should be completely disproven by now.
Yeah.
That should be understood that that's not the reality of the situation. Rudy Gobert tested positive. We don't know how long he had it before he tested positive. Donovan Mitchell tested positive. We don't know how long he had it before he tested positive. Neither one spread it through the NBA. They didn't spread it through their team any more than the 2 people that tested positive. That needs to be understood. That's not to minimize 2 positives. You want no positives. But it doesn't wreck the whole league. And now you know things you didn't know then. Now you understand protocols that you didn't understand then. Now you know things you can do to minimize it. Now you have more tests available to understand if there is a spread and work backwards. Now you know more. But none of that means anything if you're not talking to your players and explaining all of this to them. Because they're human beings like the rest of us. They're afraid. They're worried. They're worried for their families. They're worried for the people around them. Some have real big concerns because they have family members that, have compromised immune systems, have health problems. You have to talk to them just like you have to talk to people. People have to understand that, yes, this is a scary thing. There are things you can do to make it better. In a controlled environment like an athletic team, you can do a lot of things that we can't do. Like you can control it to a degree that we can't. You should feel safer, not less safe. These are the things that have to be handled because there are lots of issues with this worldwide financially. You are potentially going to look at the game losing hundreds of clubs around the world. I might be on the low end of it. And yeah, lower division teams count just the same. They matter. Are bigger teams with more money going to be in a better position to handle this? Yeah, they got more money. Smaller teams aren't. China, you already have a team that is disbanded. You have a team that has gone away. Tianhai. Fabio Cannavaro was a coach there. Luis Fabiano, Pato, Witzel, all played there. Officially disbanded. They've been replaced by Shenzhen FC in the Chinese Super League. It's not going to be the only one. It's not. So you have to balance that. You have to balance safety. You have to balance communication. You have to be in sync with all of this if you're going to get back on the field. And if you are in the game and you work in the game, you have a living in the game, you just love the game, these are things that are necessary for the game to continue in something resembling what we're used to. It's critical. England is really getting it wrong with their lack of communication. And now you're starting to get frustration. And now you're getting comments like this one. And, it's only going to get bigger. Danny Rose isn't the only one who feels that way. And the fact that you're not communicating with a player like Danny Rose to explain, we understand the risk. We understand your concerns. This is what we are doing. We want you to buy in. If you're not comfortable, we're not going to force you to play. We're not. They have to understand these things. I disagree that football shouldn't be spoken about till numbers have dropped massively. Again, in the football environment, in a team environment, you can create more safety than you can in the general public. And, yes, there is a boost to the morale of the nation. That is an important element here. I don't think you can discount that. And if you can keep these people safe, you can help them do what they do, fans will get a boost from that. There's just no way to argue that. But you have to keep them safe, and you have to make it clear to them how you are keeping them safe. When you don't do that, you get statements like this. And then these are harder to fix. You can fix it at the beginning if you do things right. You can't fix it now as easily.
Stizzle says that the hotel we were talking about with John Forsland said the hotel's in Detroit. As a Michigan resident, I'm not surprised. Yet another reason why we can't have nice things like an MLS franchise. We are banking on Orlando to save us. # Twilight Zone.
Yeah. I mean, you could pick somewhere else other than Orlando, but it's the one that makes the most sense. Look, it's the hotel thing. I want to go back and reiterate. I don't want anybody to be confused. There was not a positive test from the announcer. It was just determined that he stayed in the same room, and outside of or out of abundance of caution and fear and misunderstanding, to be perfectly honest, that announcer was removed and spent 14 days in quarantine. But he did not test positive, and he did not show any symptoms. So let's take the shade away from the Detroit hotel. It was just a fear at the time, which It's what we all felt 2 months ago.
Yeah.
A lot of us feel that now, and that's okay. But I think we know more than we did then, and that wouldn't happen, for example. That would not happen today, because you understand that just staying in the same room as somebody who did after it's been cleaned, it's not gonna happen. You know, it's lower odds than getting hit by lightning. I mean, it's crazy, like, odds. It's just, I don't know.
And getting back to the Orlando variant and all of this, Chris Kilroy says, one benefit to holding MLS matches to start at Disney Orlando is you benefit from their global organization. Disney Shanghai opened this week.
Yep.
They will have best practices in sanitation and safety with several weeks prior. They'll be more ready than anybody.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You do have that. And how many Disney has parks and such in, not just in China. Do they still have the Paris one?
I'm looking.
I think so. They've got places around the world that are going to help them deal with these things. Yeah, absolutely. And combine that with everything that the league is doing in terms of safety and in terms of these things. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to create a safe environment. And for teams that can't train in their own market right now, like, they're going to need that. Because that was what I was looking at in the next step process is, well, what happens to the Philadelphia Union? They can't train. They cannot have activities in the state of Pennsylvania right now. So then what? They were going to have to look at places to do that. And, yeah, Orlando can be that.
6 Disneylands currently: California, Florida, Paris, Tokyo, Shanghai, Hong Kong.
Okay. Lots of potential for shared information there.
Yeah. So that's the look on the Disneyland ideas. Chris Hutchison says, linking to a Reuters article, he says that none of this is going to be easy, where the Reuters article says they found 6 new cases in Wuhan, and they're planning to test 11 million people over the next 10 days. According to Reuters, neither number is a typo.
Yeah, that's how you handle it, though. You know, like, again, 6 new cases in Wuhan. 6. Okay? If you're doing the contact tracing on 6, you can handle that. That's why the contact tracing and the testing is so important. Which, when you have, 100,000 cases, you can't contact trace everything. It's impossible. It's went beyond the tracing element. 6, you can figure out who those 6 people potentially interacted with. Just like we talked about yesterday in Seoul, South Korea. Somebody in a nightclub. They had already identified everybody that was potentially in that nightclub when this person was. That's why the contact tracing is so important. But you have to have the numbers manageable to do that. In a team environment, you are controlling the numbers. You are controlling the numbers to where players, your staff, household members, and for some that's 2, for some that's 6. It's all different. But you are managing the numbers to an environment that you don't have complete control over, because the family household members are not on lockdown. The players are not on lockdown. But they're all being asked to do the things that we're all being asked to do in terms of social distancing, in terms of protecting ourselves. In that, they have more responsibility, like we've talked about, because they can bring something into their environment, their team environment, from the outside if they are not safe, if they are not doing the right things. So, a team environment, as we've seen at Cologne, 3 people tested positive. Other teams we've seen 2. You're able to trace and control it with small numbers. So the fact that we're talking about in Wuhan 6 positive tests, not scary at all. 11 million tests? Is that what they said?
In 10 days.
Okay, so I mean, you're going to be testing some people multiple times. I don't think Wuhan has 11 million people, right? It doesn't matter. Don't look it up. I know how you work, but don't work it up. Don't look it up. So over 10 days, you're going to test everybody to. That's even beyond the contact. That's kind of eliminating the contact tracing. That's just like, all right, screw it. We're going to test everybody. And we're going to test them multiple times. And that is also another way to do it. That's what you're seeing in these team environments. If somebody tests positive, you're going to test everybody multiple times to see if it has spread. We have to understand this idea. And I know it's hard, and I know it's scary, and it's been something I've had to work through in my head. One person testing positive does not mean that everybody who came in contact with that person in any form or fashion is then going to test positive. One person testing positive does not mean they are going to end up in an ICU. These are real factors in this, and it's not to minimize this, but it's to say that the transmission from one person to another is not 100%. It doesn't happen every time somebody tests positive. One person in a team tests positive. The whole team is not positive. That needs to be understood. It needs, for anything, for us to have peace of mind. You know? I mean, we need to understand that if, like the case with the hotel, I mean, if somebody tested positive who stayed in the hotel, it doesn't mean that everybody else who stayed in that hotel in any period of time around it is going to test positive. Like, you're talking about risk and odds, and it is incredibly minimal once you start to get past, you know, somebody who is sharing, you know, the immediate space where somebody is spitting on you from talking to you, coughing on you. Those are the elements that are high risk. It's just something we have to understand, not to minimize how bad this is, but to understand it so we can move forward and figure out how we do that. Because it's not going to be easy, don't get me wrong, but in a team environment, you have a lot of control. You have a lot of oversight, and Wuhan has learned a few things about this. Now, are we getting all the information? That's a whole nother topic, but they've learned a few things about this. And if that's the reaction at this point, 6 positive tests, and 11 million tests for everybody else, well, if you have a test in a team, then a positive test, then you're going to test everybody over and over again to make sure you can identify the spread. The test doesn't fix the spread. It helps you identify the spread. That's the important element.
Chris Hutchison beat me to it. They're testing everybody. Wuhan's population is a little over 11 million people as of 2018.
Okay, so they're testing everybody once. Which, I don't know if that's the right way, but they know more than I do. If you've isolated the 6 people, then I guess, yeah. Okay, so you're gonna test everybody. That's the way they're saying it to us. And as always, you got to take that with a grain of salt. But okay, that, along with the other things we've heard, and this, you can include teams in this. You can include the White House, which is a form of a team. When somebody tests positive, your follow-up is test. Isolate the person who tested positive. Make sure they're okay. Do everything possible to treat them. If they're showing symptoms, they might not be showing symptoms. Do everything you can to make sure they're okay and help them recover. Test them to see when they're negative. But you test everybody that was in contact with that person, potentially, to make sure that it hasn't spread. That's the whole thing with this. You're trying to limit the spread. You've got to do things that limit the spread. Nick Alifi chimes in our comments, and this is right. The Disney compound is the best option. Nick says the total commitment and infrastructure to secure these players. They'll get paid. They'll be able to showcase their ability and to provide a safe experience for future guests. It does a lot for Disney, because Disney will then be able to say, look, we helped this league get back on the ground. We helped Major League Soccer play games in a safe environment during a pandemic. That's about as good of an advertising statement as you can get if you're Disney. MLS will then be secured in a safe place, because then take the opposite. If you have a problem with Disney, Disney doesn't want that. Disney's, brand conscious. Disney,
yes,
they're very, very careful with what happens to the Disney brand. So they're not going to want to have any mistakes. They're going to be overly cautious with everything they do. you're going to be able to create that safe environment for the players to be able to play. And that's what you're getting to. And Disney will make money through this, which they're going to need. I mean, Disney's going to lay people off just like everybody else is. Disney needs money. They're going to get money. MLS gets a place to play, gets taken care of. They need that. ESPN, probably happy. Disney, ESPN, we know that relationship. It makes sense. It's working out a solution to this, at least in the short term. It is what it is. It's a step in the right direction. And in my mind, nothing's foolproof, but this checks a lot of the boxes.
All right, we have a vote in before we start out in the SPFL. So before we start hour number 2, do you want me to thank some folks?
Yes, I want you to thank folks, starting with our good friend from Decatur, Georgia, Steve Apolinski.
AA-legal.com, Steve Apolinski and Associates, Apolinski and Associates, LLC. Trial attorneys, over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for all of their clients in Georgia and Alabama. Wrongful death and serious injury lawyers. If you'd like to get a free consultation, you could do it a couple of different ways. You go to aa-legal.com. The millisecond that window pops up, low right-hand corner, you're going to see a live chat window pop up. 24/7, 365. Someone will talk to you in the live chat. You can do it that way. You can give Steve an email if you choose to do it that way at steve at aa-legal.com, or you can give them a call at 404-377-9191. Apolinski and Associates, LLC, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine. Top 100 trial attorneys in the state of Georgia, wrongful death and serious injury cases. Once again, aa-legal.com for Apolinski and Associates. Proud supporter of everything soccer down here and SDH Networks, 404-377-9191, aa-legal.com.
When we have MLS games, possibly from Orlando and Disney,
Orlando,
we will, who knows how this is going to look. I would assume these will all just funnel into MLS Fantasy, and our Fantasy League presented by Jason Wright and the Jason Wright Agency will just continue as is. There might be a mini league, a mini tournament with this whatever thing that they're talking about doing in Orlando is. So we might have all kinds of weird things going on, and Jason Wright will be on top of it. Jason Wright, AGEN on Twitter, Jason Wright Agency on Facebook. You have insurance needs, car, home, business, Jason Wright can take care of you. So Jason Wright Agency on Facebook, Jason Wright, AGEN on Twitter. He can help you out.
Cool. Longtime supporter of everything here for everything that we've done. And the commish always ends up in the pro section of the Pro Rel League when it comes to fantasy. So anything from our friends at Country Financial, go to the Jason Wright Agency, and the commish will always be there to help you out.
I'm going to shout out a couple more things. We have been doing our virtual brewery tour. Since we're not able to do a real brewery tour at the moment, it will be back. Don't worry. We'll be back drinking some beers with folks. Yesterday afternoon on the network, you had a chance to hear from Dry County Brewing Company. And for people who know Two Spikes, Atlanta United 2 supporters group, that's their hangout up in Kennesaw. Dry County Brewing Company. That's available on the network. You can listen to the podcast. Later today, we will have another one on the network as part of our virtual brewery tour. And thanks to Scott Flood and the Flood Project for putting all this together and starting the process of creating very, very tentative dates going forward and what is coming up next. We're figuring it all out, man. I mean, we don't know what the timing's going to look like yet. There's just no way for us to know that yet, but we will be having more of these things very, very soon, both virtually and for real, hopefully in the second half of the year. The one today, our friend in Duluth at Good Word Brewing, Todd DiMatteo, you'll be able to hear that early in the afternoon. The next SDH virtual brewery tour stop, Good Word in Duluth, Todd DiMatteo, later today.
All right. Joe Johnston is listening this morning. He says he's currently taking part in his school's morning announcements, but hope everyone is well.
We are.
So, morning, Joe. Thanks for hanging out with us. Question of the day from Jameson Christie, which we'll get back to in just a little bit. Nathan Pugh, I disagree with you wholeheartedly. He says the Little Giants are the best football team in a movie ever. Come on, John. And I would have to disagree. Anyone coached by Rick Moranis, you have to have an issue with.
I wonder what Rick Moranis would be like as a coach.
If he was more like Mike Leach, then I would probably sit there and say that Little Giants would be the best football team ever in a movie. But I don't quite think he's that way.
No, nobody wants Mike Leach involved in anything. They just don't. He's strange, and really says things that he shouldn't say and post on his social media because that's not smart.
Yep. All right. SPFL, you want to hit the breaking news, developing news sounder?
Yes, in a minute.
Starting with Chris McLaughlin of the BBC and the Scottish Sun, the resolution for the independent investigation into the SPFL has failed. 13 clubs voting in favor, 27 against, 2 abstentions. All 42 SPFL clubs met in the conference call to vote on whether or not a fresh probe into the Good Friday vote should be redone. And the answer, with Rangers needing 32 clubs total, only got 13. Now Rangers have to decide whether they're going to drop this or consider costly further proceedings, according to our friends at the Scottish Sun, involving the Court of Arbitration for Sport or the civil courts.
Here we go. Rangers is being ridiculous at this point, and I'm going to tell you why.
In Scotland, today...
Thank you.
Today?
Rangers has taken this to deal with Rangers now, at this point. Most of the clubs who are dealing with this are dealing with it in the usual perspective of, I'll give you an example. When Aberdeen came out yesterday and said that they are voting in support of the investigation, people were like, well, wow, that's crazy. They hate Rangers. It has nothing to do with Rangers. This needs to be understood. And Scottish football is tearing itself apart because of you hate Rangers, you hate Celtic, you hate some other club. Oh, they like something? Well, I hate them. Well, you used to like peanut butter sandwiches, and now that they're really campaigning for peanut butter sandwiches in their stands, and now you're not going to eat a peanut butter sandwich? Yep. If that club supports a peanut butter sandwich, I now hate peanut butter sandwiches. I only eat almond butter. That's the kind of arguments that we're getting at this point. People were blown away that Aberdeen supported something that had Rangers' name attached to it. None of this has anything to do with these individual clubs at this point. You had a league blow a voting process to the degree that they allowed a vote to be changed. They published results before it was finalized. Not even getting to the next step. Just that. Not even getting to the potential threats, bullying, extreme lobbying from the league who put forward the proposal, which the league leadership should probably be impartial in these things, because that's how you run a group of different people. When you start showing that you are partial to certain things, you're probably not doing a good job. Just a crazy thought that I have. But even taking any of that out of it right now, just the voting process itself, just that, just the fact you had an email vote, you had a team submit the vote, you didn't see it in the spam folder, you released the results without saying they were final and saying specifically that you did not have all the votes. Then you allowed that team to change their vote, which according to the bylaws, I guess they could do, even though if they voted, I thought it would be final. Again, I don't know. Just the voting process, as everybody has said throughout this, I completely agree with it. It is either incompetence or it is shady. It's one or the other. There is no way you can look at the way all this went down and say, all's good. No problem. It's all fine. No worries. This is how a league operates. This is how a vote is handled. This is how things are supposed to go. If you're doing that, if you look at this and you say that, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and ask why you're thinking that. Are you thinking that because you love Celtic and this vote probably means Celtic will win the title? Celtic was going to win the title anyway. If you played games, they were going to win the title. Like they're in Liverpool's situation, essentially. You know, if you hate Hearts and you feel like, well, this is going to relegate Hearts. Yeah, this is all great. No, this is how you operate. That's not how you do business. It's not how you run a league. It's not how you examine if a league is running properly. You cannot justify the voting process. It's impossible. I completely agree with the way Dave Cormack put it yesterday from Aberdeen. And yes, Atlanta United has a relationship with Aberdeen, but I think Dave Cormack has been the most level-headed about this because he said, look, at a minimum, and talking about the voting process, something went wrong. It needs to be investigated. If it's investigated, people who are in this camp of being afraid of speaking publicly, well, it's a private investigation, and it's not by the league itself like the last one was. It is by an outside group. Okay. People who feel like they were bullied into voting a certain way, maybe they'll be more forthcoming and be free to speak. And if there's nothing wrong, then it's proven. You can move on. Like, that's incredibly level-headed and just outside of all this nonsense about, oh, it's a Rangers vote. Well, yeah, of course the Rangers vote's going to lose. Rangers could be telling you that pizza is the greatest thing in the world and you're going to vote against it. And you eat pizza every freaking day. It's dumb. And it's killing the game. It's these things that are going to leave an indelible mark. I mean, Rangers has got problems. We know that. We've talked about it on Soccer Over There. They were almost out of money months ago. They were in a bad way months ago. I don't know how they got through the season, to be honest. They've got their own problems. It's fine. Just because they brought this forward doesn't mean it's wrong. And that voting process was wrong. There's just no way around it. And if it was wrong because of incompetence, well, let's find that out. If it was wrong because of something else, well, let's find that out too. That needs to be understood so you can have some belief in the integrity of the leadership of the league. Because right now, there's no way you can. There's just no way you can. They needed, I think, 21 more votes to have this go through. They didn't get enough. 2 teams abstained. I don't know who they are yet, but more questions than answers. And that's Scottish football, and I don't know how they go forward with this because they tried to have reconstruction talks, got nowhere. You have this, they've got nowhere. 13 out of 40 people who voted against it. That's enough to say that there's problems in the Scottish game. It's not going to get any better.
So is this where I tell you that they voted via email submission today?
Sure. I mean, how else are you going to vote right now?
I don't know, voice vote. I'm just saying that because of what happened last time. Zoom, I don't know.
Well, if you're already if I'm putting forward an investigation about bullying, there's no way I'm having a public voice vote like that. No way, because I don't want to open up the door for somebody to say no and then have a bunch of other teams yell at them. I mean, that's as bad as it is right now. You have to do it this way. It's the email part's not the problem. Like, if you have ever used email, you understand that occasionally things end up in the spam folder.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are doing a vote, you check it. when I have asked for feedback from people on the show, if I'm asking them like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm checking the email, I'm checking the spam folder, I'm checking the Twitter direct messages, I'm checking the Facebook messages, I'm checking the Instagram messages, I'm checking the mentions, I'm checking everything. If you're doing a simple email vote, you're checking two places. You're checking your inbox, you're checking your spam folder. It's not that. It's the fact that when it went wrong, you did everything to take the gasoline pump and open it up full bore, empty the tank, and then throw a match on it. You didn't do the simple thing of saying, we don't have all the votes. What could have happened to the vote we're missing? Let's make sure we have it. And because you didn't do the simple thing, there's two places it could have been. I mean, let's go really down to the nuts and bolts here. Everybody voted. Our buddy Neil Doncaster was in contact with teams throughout the day. Everybody voted. The vote closed at 5. First off, I mean, was it 5 o'clock deadline? That's it. Done. Whatever. Obviously not. But if that was it, okay. You get to 5 o'clock. You're missing a vote. One vote. You've got two different things that could have happened if everybody said they voted, which is our understanding of how it went down. That vote, if it's not in the inbox, could be in the spam folder, or it might not have gotten sent. Two very easy things you can do to finalize your vote. You can call Dundee and say, we don't have your vote. And you can check the spam folder. I would check the spam folder first. If I don't see it there, I'm calling. Done. When you don't do those things, this is the part that this is what drives me crazy about this stuff. Because you want to know why people don't believe in the league? You want to know why the league has no integrity? Because when you don't do the simplest of things, check the spam folder, call the club and say, where's your vote? And you allow the events to happen the way they did, you have questions. Why didn't you do the simple things? Is there a reason why? Again, are you incompetent because you didn't do the simple things? Gwen votes for that.
Yeah.
Or is there something else going on? And that's why you didn't do the simple things. And Gwen's confused. These are the things that come up. If you do the simple things, there's no question. There's no question, because then you have the vote, and then actually the vote would have failed. The proposal would have failed. And when you know that the league was lobbying very hard for the proposal to pass, and they did something that allowed it, when it should have failed, to potentially pass, and then ultimately pass, that's why nobody believes in the integrity of this league. And that's why you need an independent investigation. It is honestly that simple. That's it. Rangers being part of it has nothing to do with it. Any other club being part of it has nothing to do with it. And the fact that some people in the media as well allowed that to be part of the discussion, that's the problem. Because it's utterly simple. You have to know why the league didn't do the simplest of things to have this vote get finalized. And when it was going to go against the way they wanted it to go, did they know that when they did these things? I don't know. I'd love to know that. Because if they're manipulating a vote, even after the hard lobbying for the vote to go a certain way, if they are then manipulating the vote to go their way, well, those people probably shouldn't be running that league. Just that simple. That's all there is.
SPFL's come out with a statement.
Of course they did.
In the Premiership, where 9 clubs would have been required to vote in favor, a total of 4 supported the resolution. 8 clubs opposed. In the championship, where 8 clubs would have been required to vote in favor, a total of 1 club supported the resolution with 9 opposed. In Ladbrokes Leagues 1 and 2, where 15 clubs would have been required to vote in favor, a total of 8 supported, 10 opposed, 2 abstained.
So the lower divisions, it's pretty split. It's a third of the Premiership that voted for the investigation, and only 1 in the Championship, and that would have been Inverness, right?
Efforting. Because I know that Hearts, Rangers, and Stranraer were the 3 that wanted the inquiry in the first place.
Right. Well, Hearts and Rangers are in the Premiership, and Aberdeen voted in support of it too. So that's 3 from the Scottish Premiership.
Right.
Whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It didn't pass. I think one of the reasons it didn't pass is because you have clubs that hate one another, and the way things get shared out there. I mean, like I said, the fact that Aberdeen supported this shocked some people, and were like, oh, wow, because it's a Rangers thing, and Aberdeen hates Rangers. Well, yeah, but it's not a Rangers thing. It's the fact that the league has no integrity anymore. And you needed to find out, was it incompetence or was it something more? Because now you'll never know unless you find a way to go forward with it. But honestly, at this point, if you continue to push for it, you're doing more damage. And then you do start to question, well, why is Rangers pushing for this? Because it's not going to change their situation at this point. And, I mean, you had to the point that, so Inverness issued a statement ahead of the vote. The Daily Record had a piece this morning that claimed that if the original vote, which, again, if Dundee's vote had been counted properly, that proposal would have failed. Daily Record claimed that if that happened, Inverness would have put forward a counter-proposal to declare the season null and void. It would have been a counter-proposal that would have then needed to be voted on. That is the crux of the Dunfermline-Inverness fight, which has been going on. Inverness said that Dunfermline's chairman was trying to bully them into a yes vote. Dunfermline's chairman said that Inverness was going to put forward this counter-proposal. Dunfermline's chairman, who is on the SPFL executive board, said that in that counter-proposal, then teams would have been paid evenly in the payouts and not paid out by place. Inverness, in their statement, said that they wanted no relegation, first off, and they wanted the monies paid out on places. They wanted the games that were played to determine places. And their point was, why would we support a proposal that is going to cost us money?
Yeah.
Because they're one of the teams that would have made more money. Which, I mean, that kind of makes sense. Why would you support that? That's silly. So why is Dunfermline's chairman, who's on the SPFL executive board, pushing that element of it? You know, I don't know. So Inverness attacked the piece in the Daily Record that was written by Keith Jackson and Michael Gannon. Said that there was no secret plan they were pushing. They were clear in what they were hoping would happen. They voted against the original proposal. They were voting for the investigation today. Dunfermline's chairman attacked Inverness's CEO. Inverness's chairman attacked Dunfermline's chairman, and you are where you are. And, I mean, Scott Gardner, who is the chairman of Inverness, his Twitter is private now, but he said something on his Twitter about that whole process with the Daily Record and their post. And I mean, it's only going to get uglier now. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where we're at with it, and you've fractured it even more. And until they get past these issues with, we hate this team, they say that the sky's blue. I think it's green because I think it's blue. Until you get past that kind of just ridiculousness, this is how the Scottish game's going to be. It's sad. It's very sad.
SPFL Chair Murdoch McLennan came out with a statement shortly after the vote. Paragraph 2. I know those who proposed this resolution will be disappointed, but I trust that everyone involved on both sides of this argument will now respect the clear, democratic, and decisive result we've seen today and allow our game to move forward together. The overwhelming majority of clubs voted to oppose this resolution, and it's now incumbent on all clubs to put their differences aside. Otherwise, we will all suffer together.
That's correct. I mean, I disagree with maybe some of the bluster of it, but that's 100% correct. If this continues, it's going to do more damage. And, yeah, I mean, the vote showed where clubs felt. I don't like some of the reasons why they felt that way, but it is what it is. You got to move on. McLennan continued and said that, let me make sure this is it. Yeah, McLennan said, I have taken careful note of the concerns expressed by the minority of clubs which voted in favor, and when we are back to playing football in a safe environment, I will bring clubs together to discuss the lessons learned. First off, McLennan, you've got to do that now and not when you're back playing football in a safe environment. You've got to fix these things now. So stop that nonsense. The league needs to have a better explanation of what happened with the voting process to put this to bed. And even if it is, at this point, their word, they need to give that word. And they need to be very clear because they really gave no indication of, yep, we screwed up. We messed up. And our actions created this split and made things worse. And we're never going to have that happen again. Just something like that. That's all. You got to do that at a minimum. If you want everybody to move past it, you got to do something to help move past it, too. McLennan says, in reality, we must do everything humanly possible to get games back up and running by the end of July. We simply cannot afford the distraction of further infighting or legal challenges. I'm sure we can all agree that the quicker we get back to playing football, the better. Now, I'm assuming he is talking about finishing the Scottish Premiership season. Unless they're going to start the next season at the end of July. I don't know their exact scheduling. Maybe so. Either way, there's not a definite guarantee of that, and the financial implications of all of this in Scotland are going to be felt by a number of clubs. They've got a lot to do in a short period of time. They've got to regain the trust of the clubs as a whole. They've got to put this issue to bed. They've got to address the potential reconstruction idea. They've got to make a final determination on finishing the season. The reconstruction element could factor in with relegation and how that functions. They've got a lot to do right now. They don't need further infighting and further legal challenges. No. But they've also got to do the job at hand. And I don't have a lot of faith in them doing that. And that's the problem. And that's the problem for the teams that voted for the independent investigation. Nobody has any faith in the SPFL right now. They've got to earn it back. And their actions now will go a long way to earning that back. Stop talking and start doing. And let's see what you can do. Because you got what you wanted. You got your proposal to pass. You now have fought off every different inquiry into it. Now you got to show that that's the right way forward. I'll believe it when I see it. Yes,
that's exactly right. But until I see something out of the SPFL that shows any kind of forward movement, I'm just going to continue to have my doubts where the whole thing is concerned. What nation? I'm waiting for a statement. I'm kind of monitoring Rangers' social media right now to see what kind of a statement they're going to have. And if anything comes out before the end of the show, I'll let you know. What else is on your mind? Where do you want to go next?
Well, keep checking that out. I'll run through some of the news hits of the day. We'll go back to England real quick. Paul McInnes in The Guardian just broke down a little bit more about what happened yesterday. So the Premier League clubs, and some reports are saying all Premier League clubs, want to play in their home venues. They're not a fan of the neutral venue idea. They also, at their meeting yesterday, openly discussed ending the season, and that's the first time that's come up. The clubs in the bottom six were the strongest against neutral venues. Newcastle was also against it. At the meeting, they decided that idea could be revisited, so they've made no decision on the neutral venue side. This is from the article from McInnes. The medical protocols have been worked on in conjunction with club doctors, some of whom have expressed concern about the contents, and on Monday they were presented to club officials. The League Managers Association and the Professional Footballers Association were also briefed and the protocols submitted to the government for their approval, with the expectation that further amendments may still be possible. So you're starting the whole process of approval, but again, you're briefing the PFA on it. You're not involving them at the beginning. The club doctors are involved. You're not involving the players. They need to be involved earlier in the process. The meeting with the players is set to follow on Thursday. Should have happened a long time ago. Of course, you've got to get their consent to move forward. Dan Rohn, Simon Stone, Laura Scott all collaborated on this one at the BBC. Premier League clubs have been told they could have to repay an estimated £340 million to domestic and international broadcasters, even if the season resumes behind closed doors. It's down to changes to the schedule, changes to match times, like all those things could result in penalties, and they're going to have to repay this money or take less money in their next deal or their next set of checks coming forward. I mentioned it earlier. Richard Masters, CEO, Premier League, said that if they don't finish the season, you're talking about at least a £1 billion loss. Also from the article at the BBC, the government is understood to have open ears regarding neutral venues and is prepared to discuss the matter. They've been pushing for the neutral venues. However, a final decision is likely to rest with the police and ground safety officials who have to grant licenses to venues. Keep that in mind. You know, if you have most clubs who get the ability to play at home, but if you have Newcastle, for example, and the local police and ground safety officials do not grant the license to play at St. James Park, they ain't playing at St. James Park.
Yep.
Then you got to figure that out. That's where the government oversight comes into play. Just like in Germany with the quarantine issue, you know, Dynamo Dresden going into quarantine, that was a local health official who made that decision, not the club, not the league. You're going to have that come up in England too, and it's going to be about where these games get played. Italy. Now, there's a couple things from Italy, and Nick Alifi has shared one. The Association of Club Medics are threatening to resign. Many are threatening to resign, many of their members, if they are considered legally responsible for players catching COVID-19 while being part of the team. I am not an expert when it comes to this issue about liability and how this comes up. We've seen it come up with business here in the United States. It's going to be part of the conversation. The club medics should not be legally responsible for this. They should not be. And if they are, then I do get their concern. That's another element that's got to be addressed by the leagues, by the governing bodies, by the governments involved in that. Because, no, like the club medic is not causing a player to catch COVID-19. There's no way they should be held legally responsible. Another bit of rumor from Serie A, Juventus reportedly is self-imposing a salary limit on new players. And they want to do this to obviously deal with the losses they're going to face during this. That has thrown some cold water on the idea of Paul Pogba heading to Juve. Keep that in mind, that you're going to hear more talk like that with different clubs saying, well, we don't have a salary cap, but we're not going to bring players in making a salary above X number of dollars or euro or pounds or whatever because we can't afford it. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. Two other bits. Austria. The Austrian Bundesliga is set to return on June 2nd as things currently stand. Add them to the list of leagues getting back to action. Australia has some major issues, and Australia is one we haven't talked about very much during all this. Dominic Bossi at the Sydney Morning Herald wrote that Hyundai is not renewing its $6 million a year sponsorship of the league and the federation. I think $1 million of that was tied to national teams for Australia. They're not renewing it. And this isn't the only one. The organization has lost 3 other sponsors in the past year and they're facing the prospect of Fox Sports walking away from the TV deal worth close to $60 million a year. The deal for Hyundai was set to end on June 30th, but sources are telling Bossy at the Sydney Morning Herald that the FFA, the Australian Federation, and Hyundai have agreed to a short-term extension to cover the remainder of the delayed season. The grand final in Australia, the championship match, is set to be held no later than August 30th. So that they're at least on a pathway to finish. I don't know what their timeline looks like right now. I don't know how many games they have left, but they're trying to finish their current season by August 30th, and it looks like they've got at least Hyundai to stay on board as the title sponsor of the league until then. But they're gone after that. 3 other sponsors, gone. Fox Sports might walk away. I mean, at a minimum, from what we know with these two, you're talking $66 million a year, gone. That's catastrophic when you're talking about the game in Australia, because it's not a financially rich game right now. So, clubs are going to want to spend less. Sponsors are going to want to spend less or not spend at all. TV partners, potentially, in this situation, and MLS has to look at that and be worried, potentially not wanting to spend. I think here it's a little different because, as we've seen, live sports is really the only thing that's still driving people to cable. I do think ESPN, even if the ratings are not where they want them to be, obviously they want them to be everybody in the United States with a TV watching every game. It's not going to happen. The ratings need to be better, and we've talked about ways to do that. But even with the ratings where they are and seeing the very small incremental growth that we've seen, they're happy with that because they need volume because they have ESPN Plus to deal with. That changes the discussion a little bit because it's what we've seen with baseball contracts over the years. And I think back to when ESPN got baseball for the first time, they paid a ton of money, and it definitely, constricted them a little bit in what they could do in other areas, but they needed the volume of content because they were launching ESPN2 at that time. They needed stuff. They needed content. They needed programming. ESPN Plus needs a lot of different programming. They need not just whatever they get from England and Spain and wherever. They need MLS in ESPN Plus. They need USL Championship in ESPN Plus. They need those elements too. So that's going to help MLS, but Fox Sports, $60 million a year in Australia. The A-League's not the big sport in Australia. I think you need to understand that. It's one of the comparisons that you have with MLS. Australian rules football is the biggest sport in Australia. But you have rugby, right?
Yep.
You have basketball in Australia, which is maybe better than in a lot of places. You have a lot of different things in Australia. So it's a little more spread out than some other countries that it's soccer and that's it. But the A-League doesn't drive the sporting conversation on its own in Australia. So to lose this much stuff and potentially lose that TV partner, they're in a really bad way, and they've got a lot of things to figure out in a short period of time.
Did you see this piece from Kaval Sokol at Sky where a Premier League owner warns teams that they are facing a summer of chaos if the season isn't restarted, and this one owner thinks there's a 40% chance the campaign gets canceled?
Well, it's starting to come up now about the campaign getting canceled. They have pushed back on that in a big way. On the record, all the clubs have said they want to finish the season. We know the financial implications. I mean, $1 billion, at least, of a loss throughout the league. Some teams are going to get hit a whole lot harder than others. Yeah, you're going to have a summer of chaos. I mean, you're going to have that if you finish the season. If you don't, and if you don't, I mean, let's just go back to that BBC article real quick. You don't finish the season, you're talking about at least $1 billion of losses if the Premier League doesn't play. And this is from Richard Masters. This was in the immediate past, not from yesterday. Now, it's also come out that just on the broadcast side, this isn't including losses at the gate, any other match day assorted revenue, just in broadcast, potentially, it's not a definite, but potentially, Premier League clubs could have to repay an estimated £340 million to domestic and international broadcasters, even if you finish, on top of whatever losses you have from the loss of match day revenue. You're going to have chaos either way, but double the chaos at least if you don't finish the season. I mean, just in terms of losses, just financial losses, double if you don't finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially. Maybe more. Either way, like, you're going to have a mess. But if you can prevent losses of £500-600 million less, whatever the numbers work out to be, if you can prevent that by playing, you're going to try everything possible to play. But yeah, there's a risk you don't. And I don't know exactly how to compare what's going on in the UK with coronavirus versus what's going on in the United States with coronavirus versus what's going on in Germany, what's going on in Spain, what's going on in Italy. It's very hard to compare the governmental influence, the government's response, the feeling in the country. It, from a distance, feels like the reaction, the emotional feeling to everything going on in the UK, it is much more severe than it is in Germany, Spain, and Italy at this point. Might be wrong on Italy. Italy's a little bit harder to read, but it feels like the fear is very high. Mm-hmm. And that's going to play into these decisions and these reactions in the football community as well. You can't ignore the losses. You can't ignore those numbers. You can't ignore £1 billion loss. You can't ignore £340 million loss. You can't ignore that stuff. The leagues are going to look very different when you're able to play again. If you're able to play again in a month, you're not going to have fans in the stands. You're going to finish this season out. When it's done, you're going to have players get sold that you wouldn't have expected to get sold. If there's buyers, and that's a very valid question. Where are the buyers going to come from? What are the numbers going to be? You know, are transfer fees going to get slashed by 50%? 30%? 70%? Are there just not going to be clubs buying? We don't know. We don't know what that looks like. That's the scary part of this, is the unknown. Summer of chaos? Yeah, that's happening regardless. Double the chaos if you don't finish.
This particular owner told Saul Call, nobody knows how to settle things if we don't play again. I still believe no relegation would be the best solution, and we can go with having a 22-team league for one season with Leeds and West Brom coming up. Mm-hmm. And whatever happens, relegated teams would sue. That's why I favor no relegation. And this is, once again, a club owner that was could not and did not want to be identified publicly.
Because of the fight that always happens with this stuff. Is you come out and you say something like that is logical and makes sense and is the safest way forward in terms of a structure. And because the league has come out very strongly in saying they're not going to have, no relegation, you don't want to have that fight. You should. We need to have that fight because it does make the most sense. You look at the punishment that happens. Nobody should be punished because of a global pandemic. No club should be punished. Relegation is the biggest punishment you got. Mm-hmm. And when you're not able to finish the season, clubs are being punished in an unfair way by being relegated. That doesn't mean you shouldn't declare a champion. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't declare your European spots based off your current results. That's a different conversation. There's not punishment. I mean, if you're going to complain that Manchester City not having a chance to keep Liverpool from winning the title is equal to Aston Villa going down, go home and eat a sandwich and stop talking. They're completely different worlds. Aston Villa shouldn't be relegated when they have a game in hand. Nobody should be relegated right now. If that means it's 22 clubs, if you promote 3, if it's 23, like, you figure it out. You Google how you make a schedule with 23 teams or 22. You figure out how your relegation process works the next year, and you move on. You have to adapt. You can't say, well, we always have relegation, so we have to have relegation. No, you don't. And you shouldn't unfairly punish teams for nothing that they did during this. They cannot control the fact that they don't get to finish the season and or they don't get to play these final games in their home venues. Like Brighton's argument, I think it's reaching, but yeah, I'll buy that. And that would be fine for me if Brighton's reaching argument of, well, we were going to have these home games against Liverpool and these top teams and we would do better at home. You might nick a point here and there. That's fine. No, that's valid. Like, they would play better at home than they would on the road. They would play better at home potentially than they would in a neutral site.
Agreed.
It's a reach that it would change the outcome, but it's still a valid point.
Yeah.
That's enough of a point for me to say, don't relegate anybody. Don't relegate anybody. There's no need to add extra punishment on it. You need these clubs. Yes, that's going to mean that Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, all the top clubs are going to make less money on TV next year. Yep. It's also going to mean that you strengthen the game as a whole. And whether you like it or not, and I know Liverpool and Manchester City and Manchester United and Arsenal and Chelsea have zero expectation of ever playing in the championship. I get that. That's fine. They need the championship. Every team in the country needs the division below them. Even in a country like the United States, where you don't have promotion relegation, MLS clubs need the USL Championship because they need places for their young players to play. Mm-hmm. They need USL League One because they're turning over diamonds in the rough. They're growing the game in different parts of the country. You need the lower divisions, and you need to find a way to support them right now because they're the ones that are going to get hit the hardest. If that means you promote and you share the TV money a little bit wider than you would have, and you take a smaller cut, you take a smaller cut and stop crying. You're going to be fine, Manchester City and Liverpool and Manchester United and the rest of you. You're going to be okay. You're going to make less money, but you're going to be okay. Bournemouth, they wouldn't be okay. This might save Bournemouth.
Yeah.
This might save Brighton. This might keep Villa from administration.
Mm-hmm.
These things are important. And further down, the teams that would get relegated, yeah, this would absolutely save them. Because teams that get relegated from the championship to League One and further down the pyramid, that could be, ending their club. So you need them. And you need to create a plan that actually understands that. So they should not be relegating teams. Nobody should be relegating teams right now. I think that is the absolute wrong approach. In France today, Amiens, they took out a full-page ad in L'Equipe pleading with the league not to relegate them. 4 points away from safety, 10 matches. 30 points left on the table. They're 4 points away from safety. And they're getting relegated. Shouldn't happen. Not because of this. You should have a chance to play those 10 games. They don't have that chance. The government shut down the game. You shouldn't relegate them. Play 22 teams in the league next year. Play the schedule. Divide up the money a little bit more. Big teams got to take a little bit of a hit to help the little guy. That's where these teams should be thinking. They've got to stop the fighting. They've got to stop the infighting. The issues in Scotland are going to hit the smaller clubs more than they're going to hit the bigger clubs, but they're going to hit everybody. England is going to be the same thing, separated even further. Liverpool doesn't live in the same part of the world as Bournemouth, and they're in the same league, but supporting no relegation could save a Bournemouth. And that should be the goal right now.
Right there with you. I mean, I completely and totally agree that there should not be any relegation this season. And it is, you would like for the major domos in all of these leagues to understand that if you were to do that in this current environment, that the ripple effect, I think, impacts folks that much more, especially those who would be impacted in a relegation scenario. It impacts those clubs. It impacts everyone associated with those clubs, those communities, those fans. All of this trickle down, I think, this year with what we're living through right now.
You just can't punish these teams who don't get a chance to fight to stay up. And right now, if you can spread the money around a little bit more, you need to do that. If you can't finish the season, even if you can finish the season, you should avoid relegation. Or you do what Germany did. And Germany has created a solidarity fund for smaller clubs. They're going to finish their season, and I believe they're going to have relegation. They're going to finish their season behind closed doors, but they're going to finish it. But they've created a solidarity fund from the bigger clubs to help the smaller clubs. If you are dead set against having a bigger Premier League next year, well, then that should be the next argument. Is, okay, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, you guys aren't going down. Y'all need to chip in and give more to the clubs that are going down. And that should be spread throughout the pyramid. And that should be spread for the good of the game, because it's going to take everyone working together for the game to survive this. This infighting, this nonsense, it's got to stop.
Statement from Celtic, but not from Rangers this morning so far when it comes to the SPFL vote.
Okay. Is there anything interesting in it?
I'm scanning it, and I'm just kind of like, you're saying all the right things. Middle of it, here we go. There's a paragraph. We greatly regret the denigration of named individuals who have on every occasion acted upon the decisions which were made by the board of the SPFL representing all 42 clubs. The board and executive of the SPFL have operated under circumstances of unique difficulty in dealing with challenges of an unprecedented nature. Although Celtic are not directly involved in issues of promotion and relegation, we have great sympathy for clubs which will end up in a lower division. While we have been supportive of temporary reconstruction, Celtic also understands the position of clubs who do not support league reconstruction at this time.
Game's broken, and Celtic's the one who it doesn't matter. Like the broken elements of the Scottish game don't affect Celtic. So,
yeah.
Am I surprised that they don't really care? No. They don't have a reason to.
No.
Temporary reconstruction, at least they've said they support that you shouldn't have relegation, I would assume, is what they're essentially saying. But the general health of the game in Scotland is not good. It needs to be better. And Celtic should be leading that effort, not saying, well, doesn't affect us, we don't care.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. Couple other bits that have popped up before we wrap. So the Ministry of Health in Italy confirms that, quote, without doubt, if anyone tests positive for COVID-19 within a club, it all stops under Serie A protocol. It doesn't make logical sense. It just doesn't. I think we know more than that at this point. I mean, in this protocol, the most important point is that if anyone within the group, whether player or member of staff, tests positive for COVID-19 after group training has begun, then the entire squad has to go into a 15-day quarantine. It's not what the Bundesliga is doing. It's not what the Premier League model proposes. Sandra Zampa told Radio Kiss Kiss Napoli, without doubt, if anyone tests positive for COVID-19 within a club, it all stops. The quarantine becomes automatic, and the whole season stops. If you don't stop, the virus will stop you instead. Loving football means caring for the people who work within it. The only reason we're talking about resuming Serie A at all is because of the economic impact. I just don't think that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I'm not the Ministry of Health Undersecretary, but I think we know more than that at this point. I don't know what the testing procedures are in Italy, and if you're not having the testing to back it up, then yeah. If you're not going to test the people in the club where somebody tests positive, then yeah, you have to assume that everybody has it. But if you're doing the testing, you would then know who has it, who doesn't. And you would know what the spread is, and then you can deal. I don't know. That's my number one thing, and that's why I've been trying to learn more throughout all this, to be perfectly honest. Because I don't think there's enough consistency in what's being said about what you need to know, what I need to know, what a team medic needs to know, what a government official needs to know. It's all over the place. And people are bringing their own different opinions into it. And, to the point, this is a very minor example, but this has been part of the confusion around all this. At one point, there was this idea that if you went to the store here in the U.S., you went to the grocery store and you bought 5 bags of food, that you needed to leave the bags outside of your house and bring in the items, unpackage them, and bring in the items. That was said a lot for a minute, like a couple days, maybe a week. I don't know. I don't remember how long it was. But you had some people saying, no, you don't have to go to that degree. You just need to wash your hands. You need to do all those things. And then eventually they're like, yeah, you don't need to do all that. That's excessive. Like, that's about the grocery store. Like, we're getting differing opinions on quarantine, self-isolation, group of people, testing, not testing. We really need to have some more consistency across the board so we all know more about this and we all can know what's the right way forward. This is a very different statement than has been said by any other league since the beginning of this. And I understand it. I understand why the fear is there, but I think we know more at this point that because one person in a club gets it doesn't mean that the whole club gets it and doesn't mean they spread it to other clubs. And if the testing is there to back it up, then we would know.
Yep.
If the testing's not there, then we're having a different conversation. But I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me.
Nope. Right there with you.
I think we've learned more than that now.
Yes, I think we have as well. And there are still, while Italy is 5th in the world when it comes to number of positive cases, I think that if you could compare notes with the rest of the top 5, that your response might be a little different.
Yeah, it's all tough, and we're all trying to make sense of it as we go. But
yep.
I think big, bold proclamations like that maybe aren't the way forward at this point. And yeah, they are talking about resuming Serie A because of the economic implications, and they're real. Like, it shouldn't trump safety, and I'm not trying to make a pun.
No.
It shouldn't trump safety to say there's economic concerns, but you can't dismiss them either.
Right.
Like, you can't just say that, well, that doesn't matter right now. It does. It is part of the conversation. And they do go together in a lot of ways. And that's where we are. So the more that we fight and the more that we argue and the more that we make, whether a statement like this that leaves no wiggle room, whether we fight because a club that we don't like is bringing forward a thing that actually makes logical sense. But no, Rangers supported it, so we can't support that. The more that we don't communicate, like the Premier League talking to their players, involving them earlier in the process, they're going to talk to them on Thursday. Well, that's great. You've already talked to the government. You've already talked to everybody else but the players. Players are a little ticked off. Good job, Premier League. The more that we don't look at what's going on with teams that are going to get relegated and the effect and solutions to that, the harder all this is going to be. It's just where the reality is. We all want to get back to whatever normal looks like as soon as we can. It's not going to look the same. It can still have elements of normalcy. We'd love to get there. It's going to take work to get there. It's more than anything going to take people trying to have an understanding of one another and trying to work together. And soccer is no different. So I hope that these leagues that are struggling with this can find a way forward. I hope that the Bundesliga plan works. I hope that it's a plan that can be replicated. And I hope that MLS is taking, all of this under advisement and figuring out what their best way forward is, which won't look exactly like Germany. It won't look exactly like Italy. It won't look exactly like anybody. It'll look like MLS, but it'll learn from what everybody else is dealing with too. It's all a challenge, and we're all trying to figure it out.
Yep. Notes out of Vancouver quickly. The Whitecaps are beginning voluntary individual workouts now as well.
Not with Jordi Reyna. He is suspended, I believe.
Check.
Yeah. Good stuff, buddy. All kinds of stuff will come out the rest of the day in Scotland, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Would expect that things come out more about MLS's plans and other plans as well. We'll get into all of that in the morning. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Soccer Down Here app, on soccerdownhere.net. Thanks for listening on demand. Thanks for watching on Twitch. Tell everybody about where they can watch our late night show, which is actually this show, but it's late night for some people, like for you watching right now. Maybe, possibly.
Maybe, possibly. Go to zingotv.com. Go to Zingo TV, download the Zingo TV app, and it's on the Barn Burner TV network, channel 250. So Zingo TV, download the app. You can watch this if you've missed any part of it, 11 o'clock till it ends, so like 1:30 in the morning. So it's the Night Owl version on Zingo TV, and also if you want to listen to the 2-hour, the 159.50 version of the show, it's also with our friends at ESPN Coastal overnights as well.
All the places you can listen to all of our nonsense, and we'll have more nonsense tomorrow. Thanks, y'all. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.